What's up, everyone? I'm John. I'd like to welcome you to our VoD review show designed to help you hashtag dominate the game. For that, of course, I turn to my consummate co host, the one, the only, Big Furndog double G.
Yep.
So, the purpose of this series is we're going to pick a game from the exceL Premiership. We're going to look for probably the best macro based game from the last couple of weeks, and we're going to go through in a lot of detail exactly what's going on, why teams are doing the things they're doing. The specific purpose of which is to help you learn how to play the macro game as well as possible. So the game that we're doing today, which I can only apologise for, is the exceL versus Misfits Academy game, just because the standard was really, really high. So we're going to have to make Fern watch it again. For anyone who hasn't seen the result, that will become clearer later on. The one thing we've noticed as well with our overlay, unfortunately, which is a problem, is that we're covering up the first three bans from Misfits, so we're just going to explain them as we go. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pause it when we need to, we're going to point out things, and we're going to go into really in-depth to try and explain everything as best as possible.
So if it's just me, but you might have called that the exceL Premiership. It's not a Premiership yet, but technically it is.
Spoilers for people who are watching it in the future.
Give it a couple of months.
Okay, so the first ban from Misfits is the Zac. That's obviously a strong ban in this meta. Another thing to point out is this is 8.3. How much of that do you think is just because the champion is strong, and how much is that a sort of target ban?
Well, yeah, Taxes played it quite a bit prior to this. So, I mean, it's just one they didn't want to deal with, and obviously they didn't want to first pick either. Afflict, as we know, has been playing kind of exclusively more carries orientated junglers. Played a lot of Rengar, Nidalee, Kha'Zix himself, and we'd been playing mainly tank junglers on Taxa. Whereas, as we'll see in a minute, that kind of changes with this draft.
Yeah, so the other bans coming out from Misfits are Talia, which is targeted at Cromel. We saw Cromel on it against M&M. Probably not going to see it again for a while.
Yeah.
And then the Camille was just a really strong pick in the meta.
Yeah, we were flexing that Camille a lot to both top and jungle. So.
And this is pre-nerf Zoe, so that just sort of has to go. Galio also pre-nerf.
Special, one of the players that had played Zoe a lot, they'd happily first pick it, and Special was kind of their main carry player, so we didn't want to give him that. Equally, Galio stops us making a lot of plays on the side lanes. If we want to play around Shikari's lane or Chrisberg's lane, really hard to do that when enemy team has Galio, so we removed that, and then we removed the Tristana for what you'll see is our second pick in a minute, which is the Kalista. Because we didn't think there's many other answers.
You've just said that Taxa obviously has had lots of success on tank junglers, but we see the Kha'Zix coming up here. Firstly, how much of that is sort of a pre-planned strategy specifically against Misfits, and also what then is the strategy?
Yeah, we'd spent a week kind of preparing for Misfits, and by kind of understanding the kind of blueprint of this team, where it's Afflict playing a lot of carry junglers, Special playing the aggressive roaming mid laners, them getting vision control on bot side of mid lane, and then using those two to kind of roam onto the side lanes. We wanted to ensure that we had the higher pressure early game jungler. So we'd spent a week kind of putting priority on Kha'Zix. I'd spoken to a lot of people and they thought the threat of Kha'Zix was actually really underrated, the threat that he could kind of provide to teams. So we went for both the Kalista super early game. We felt like with the Tristana ban there wouldn't be many answers in terms of pressure on bot lane. And then the Kha'Zix, because we wanted to keep kind of Afflict penned in or really uncomfortable and actually being on the non-aggressive side of the matchup.
And this is one of the things that's worth pointing out in Champ Select, because you only obviously get 3 bans before these first set of picks. You're not going to ban out everything, especially if you've got to ban Galio and Zoe. But a pick like Kha'Zix actually is sort of in a way denying picks as well. So yes, Sejuani is still strong in the meta, but if you hadn't picked Kha'Zix, you're saying you probably would have gone to a more aggressive.
Yeah, he'd have probably gone Nidalee, or even taken Kha'Zix himself. He may have gone Rengar, but he felt, and I'm sure most junglers would feel, that you can't really pick that Nidalee when the enemy team's already got the Kha'Zix, because you really the enemy champion is just better at doing what you're trying to do anyway.
And if you run into each other, obviously, against the Kha'Zix, if you're squishy,
you literally get one shot.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to watch out for. So now, like you said, we've got the Kalista that's going to be bullying top bot lane. They first picked the GP. GP is obviously really strong, but can be bullied in lane.
Yeah.
Is this sort of shaping up the way you want it to from the exceL point of view?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of ramp-up time. there's a long period of the game where Kalista should be winning at bot, especially seeing as they didn't take any of their bot lane in the first rotation, and we can actually remove a couple more pressure AD carries. That should facilitate our early pressure on bot side. Equally, the Gangplank, yes, will be super strong when he gets enough crit stacked, but it's going to take a long time. He's got one of the most expensive build paths in the game going into the full crit and Triforce, whereas now it's going to immediately bully from level 1 and they can actually start pressuring that lane, especially if Sejuani's not able to cover the Gangplank because we've got Kazakhs invading topside.
Okay, so these two AD carry bans that we see, I mean, Kalista's sort of strong against basically everyone in lane phase. Is this more so that Caitlyn and Varus can push and like get pressure in the lane?
Yeah, these are the two AD carries that we felt that Crispo plays that has the most lane pressure onto the Kalista. This is somewhere where it kind of could have been up for debate of we should have denied the Zyra Khan, because that's another option on the board for Misfits. But what I felt at the time is that if we got Braum first pick, we'd actually be in a good spot to actually deny a lot of the all-in from
okay, so it's like,
anyway.
and this is something that I always personally preferred when I was doing drafts and stuff back in the day. I'd rather have a team that's picked everything that I want them to pick.
Yeah.
Like if I've done enough champs-led prep, and then at the end I've got a list of the 5 champions that I think they're going to play, and they're playing those 5 champions. Even if it is stuff like Zyra Khan, which is traditionally really strong, because you know that's coming, and you've got the Kalista Braum, that's obviously giving you a lot of power, and that can be something that helps a lot of people. I think quite often, especially when you're just getting used to drafting in a team sense, people just say like, oh, we'll just ban away their highest win rate champs, and then they play like one of their 5 second highest win rate champs, and then it could be anything, and the game can change a lot more based on that.
I mean, it was more like, I completely agree that once you know what is likely to come out from your opposing team, it makes things much easier. Ours was more looked at in a kind of blueprint sense, so a style of the way they play. So we knew they like to put a lot of pressure around mid lane with an aggressive jungler, use that aggression to allow Special to move and roam to the side lanes. So we wanted to deny a lot of that by having the stronger side lanes, so that one, they could push in and move towards mid lane perhaps, or control the river vision with the stronger jungler, which is Kazakhs, making it hard for, even if Special did have lane prior in this matchup, actually making it hard for him to be able to roam because he's always afraid of bumping into the Kazakhs. And giving Krumel kind of the later game scaling mage of Victor.
Is that something that you sort of, is that a more specifically 8.3 thing before the games could close out really quickly, or do you think it's always worth having at least one champion who's sort of a better late game insurer?
Yeah, I mean, it's been traditionally always a thing to go with, to have some kind of late game insurance, whether that's on your AD carry or your mid laner, or even sometimes in previous patches like the Gangplank is like a late game insurance policy. But since 8.3, with the whole Bannon minions being a thing, it's probably been the only real meta where actually it's okay to kind of fully funnel into early mid game, because if you control your early game properly and you get the first Nash, you open up so much of the map with the banner minion that actually you don't need to rely on.
And by that point, you've got so much of an advantage that even when you do get to, we have seen some of these games get to sort of 30, 40 minutes, but it's like when they get there, they're not with loads of towers up. It's like you're only just holding
it's 30, 40 minutes with the early game champions on 4 items, whereas the scaling champions are on 2 items. So, as always, scaling's like relative. It's not a case of, yes, Kalista, Xayah, both 4 items, Xayah's always going to win, because actually Xayah's been put so far behind for those 30 minutes that she's not in the same spot as the Kalista is in that game, for instance. So.
Okay, so what then are... We'll do exceL because we might as well. What are the sort of the first 5 minutes of the game? How do you want them to shape out in the sort of ideal world? So you have got this problem where eventually you will get outscaled, but you've got pushing lanes and you've got a Kha'Zix, which is like exactly what you want to have. So how then do you sort of execute on something like that?
So the strategy won't necessarily come in immediately, because Kha'Zix's real pressure comes when he gets to evolve his ult and is after 6, and he can spend a lot of time in Sejuani's jungle without being punished for it. In the early game, in some respects, if Kha'Zix and Sejuani meet, Sejuani doesn't actually have that bad of trades. She's a lot of CC and just able to take a really good trade back on you. But what we should be seeing is Sendo immediately starting to pressure top. Kha'Zix giving him some cover so that he can
I mean, that's something that
shove.
that you quite often see when people are looking at, if you're looking at one specific role, you can't really do that so much in competitive, especially nowadays where like it's so much about the team play, is that you'll see, if you're just watching Sendo, you see him push up against Jakara and you think, right, okay, so in this matchup I can push, and yes, you can push, but this is going to be facilitated, hopefully, from your point of view, by Taxa being able to pressure the top side of the map. So,
and I mean, if it's not, then Sendo needs to understand and respect the potential of whatever threats are on him. So
that's something to always watch out for, is that like you have to play the push and pull of like what's going on with
you're
all
not just
champions.
winning your 1v1 matchup anymore, because you can shove the gangplank in this instance. If he's not getting adequate cover, he actually can't shove the gangplank because he'll die for it, or he'll lose a lot of resources, which is the last thing we want when we've actually drafted a pressure lane.
So what were you seeing then in terms of starts, like both side, top side? That's just fairly standard, right, for jungle.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to give Zyrakan too many advantages in bot lane, so if they're able to get to the wave first and start stacking that wave, it can become very difficult for you.
Was that who was that?
Sendo phone calls.
That's alright.
But yeah, you want to be able to allow bot lane to actually be in lane in this matchup, so that there's not an advantage, because that's a very volatile lane. If Zyra can get a lead in most lanes, it can be really rough.
And then, of course, both the junglers, they sort of these two especially, sort of have to start a buff for the one camp thing. So the second you can't start bot lane, you have to start top, basically. It's quite that simple.
Yeah, it's majority of junglers nowadays do start buffs. The only real exception in the meta is Zac, being the one who can start like Wolves into doing his Gromp and blue buff at the same time. But a lot of this is like, there's more onus on Sejuani to turn her losing lanes around than there is Kha'Zix to do anything.
Yeah.
Kha'Zix just has to
if
mirror.
he can just like find her out, then
Just
then that's the
see where
advantage.
Sejuani is, not allow her to do much. And as you see here, Taxa did a one buff clear into moving towards bot side into the scuttle. So he actually did the same amount of camps as Sejuani, but the smaller camps are not actually the buff, so he could get to the scuttle first, so that she
And
can't
again,
move into
that's the
river freely.
adaptation like we're talking about. That's like you said, before 6, Kha'Zix can't put out like an insane amount of pressure onto the lanes, but his lanes are winning anyway, so all he's got to do is make sure that he gives them enough protection, he gives enough vision. So he sees Sejuani, he gets the scuttle crown, and
His job is just to be that kind of battle ward you hear so much about on the kind of LCS and LCK casts. Of a jungler who's actually moving and just nullifying the enemy jungler rather than actually doing anything on the lane, so to speak.
So we've just seen it there. Krumel in this lane's actually taken fleet footwork on the Victor. Do you want to talk about that briefly?
That's something that came about on this patch on 8.3. Victor got some significant shield nerfs on his Q, and he became more of significant shield buffs, so about 60% buff on his Q shield. Footwork obviously scales with both AP or AD, so you can get a big amount of healing off whatever kind of source of damage you do. It also allows him to kind of dip in and out of fights really nicely with their champion without like, a huge amount of mobility, barring a slight movement speed buff on his Q. He actually is able to dip in and out, use the shield more readily, and just get in and out of fights, constantly using Q and E. So it's like a more sustained option.
And this is what we were talking about before. So Sendo's pushed really aggressively, but Tax is there to give him the support. So that's always something to watch out for.
They just know they win that 2v2. If Sejuani's there and Kha'Zix moves, they just know they win that 2v2 at this point in the game. So he can be this aggressive.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Taxa needs to be doing, right? Because bot lane's shoved in, so they're probably not going to get dived at this stage of the game. And top lane is pushed for you, so that's where you want to be. And it's like, even though he's not actually going to gank here, he's still helping, he's providing, he's giving Nar the opportunity to get the priority in the lane, get the shove on. So he can start getting advantages in terms of the CS, which we already see coming out. He's already got like a 7 CS lead. I don't know how many minions are built up, but that's still quite a big deal.
Significant at 5 minutes for sure. And Gangplank will, because he's melee, will lose some of these minions to tower, and it's just inevitable. what we saw Special and Afflict do there was really, really good. Special had some prior mid lane, and Afflict immediately moves into Kha'Zix's bot side jungle, puts a ward on the Gromp. Special puts his ward in the bush behind Kha'Zix's wolf, so they immediately know that kind of pressure, and the exact same is done on the opposite side of the map, right? So a couple of wards done from Kha'Zix. You may see in solo queue some Kha'Zix opt straight into like a more offensive, kind of straight into Corfield's Warhammer or something like that, more kind of offensive route, but in the competitive scene, I mean, I know now on latest patches, now the Tracker's Knife's gone, but on 8.3, really, really good to do this because as soon as you don't see Sejuani on any of those 3 wards in her topside jungle, you can assume almost that she's in her bot side, and that's probably why you see bot lane respecting a bit more here.
Yeah, I mean, this is again basically just like one of the best tips to take away from this game, if it turns out how I remember it, is that basically when you've got a pushing advantage, that's when you're going to do something.
Yeah.
And so people quite often just like don't just invade just because you're just invading for any reason. But the second that Special gets a push on in mid, then they push in together and they get the wards down, and that's how you can do it in a much safer way, and that's how you can start that sort of that first domino that's going to lead you eventually into another fight.
Yeah. You always have to consider more than just your role. So Taxed can't just consider him and Sejuani here. He needs to consider top lane and mid lane. And as we can see here, Nars moving towards. So Nars going to be first on this, and he can constantly back up Taxed. Taxed can go and be a real nuisance. Sejuani take away his Gromp, even just right under his face. He could take a better trade than that on Sejuani if he continue with his Qs.
Yeah.
Once Sejuani's combo down, it's not much, but he actually chooses not to just because he just wants to minimise the
risk. He knows
risk.
exactly what he's got to do.
Yeah,
and the same thing with Sendo in the top lane. He gets Shikari's ult and then just instantly backs away, because one of the things, honestly, is that GP can ult bot lane and affect other lanes, but he can't for a while now.
For sure. Here's one that was the back timing of Venza and Jewel that actually led to Prospect getting some free time. And again, we're talking about Prior, he uses Prior really well, is immediately mid lane, goes through the area of vision control that Misfits have got, which is the bottom side of that mid lane, and gets in there unseen, blows Krumel slash.
So even though we're talking about the exceL bot lane being such a strong bot lane, especially 2v2 at this point, that doesn't mean that you can't do anything. It means that you just use the time when you've got Prior.
Yeah, we do see it a lot where...
Should we just pause it? I think some stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, we see it a lot where, especially in competitive, you see bot lanes picked not necessarily just for the lane. So you have the better shove-in AD carry, something like a Caitlyn, and then that's paired with something like an Alistair or something like that. But actually the enemy has still got their support to pick, and they take something that kind of nullifies the Alistair's laning presence, something like Morgana, Tom Kent, something like that. And you're then in a situation where, like, at a lower level or kind of an amateur level, people are like, oh, what am I meant to do? How can I play Alistair into Morgana and she just black shields every time I combo? Whereas in actual fact, because you've got the push in AD, you're going to get a significant amount of Prior. If you get a significant amount of Prior, Alistair's completely unlocked to make plays on mid lane, to invade the enemy jungle with your jungler and actually make enemy jungler's life a kind of misery. Equally, Caitlyn is someone who's very good at opening up the map and taking the first tower. Now she can headshot towers. So again, that gives Alistair more and more time. Same with Fresh, same with Rakan. These type of champions, that very good roaming champions, can make
and
a lot of
it's just
presence.
about using that time when you've got it. So even if you've got a losing lane, they take a slightly worse back time because they're trying to wait for the cutlass.
Yeah,
and you can go for it. And this is exactly what we were talking about before. This is why you have Kha'Zix into Sejuani. If they run into each other at this stage in the game, Sejuani is just taken massively low, and the pressure that she can put out is just lost.
And you can constantly move into the set just like this, and she's always leaving. Like there's no option for her. Whereas for Taxa, it's the enemy lanes have Prior, I can just jump over the wall, or I can be more aggressive and just force her out myself. So they're the real benefit. That's why we early rotated this card.
And this is exactly what people mean when they say battle ward. Really, it's like this is you're saying it now, step by step. This is exactly what happened.
There's been very few times in the first 8.5 minutes where the whereabouts of Sejuani haven't been known, and that's exactly what we were going for here, because Afflict has been someone who's kind of done a lot for them in their early pressure.
And this is something, as I see it happening on the map now, we don't get, there you go, there we get to see it. This is something that, like we were talking about before, this is that domino effect, right? So Kha'Zix comes in mid lane with his nice balanced like 5 seconds of invisibility, running straight through a pink ward, pushes the Rise back a bit. Afflict instantly thinks I have to respond to that, but because of the matchup, gets chunked out, and then Special goes to clear a ward down here.
Yeah, a more aggressive
where he doesn't have the prize. So this is the sort of one mistake of not using the pressure that your jungler provides, because exceL obviously know that now Sejuani's a bit low, and they can then force on that. So it's sort of one thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, which gets you first blood. And it's like, you might not see that when you just run into mid lane and chunk out the Sejuani.
Yeah, for sure.
First blood gets picked up by Taxa. exceL with one on the board now. Sendo trading against Shikari here, looking for damage, and Sendo.
I remember that happening at the time.
Yeah.
So this is something that I do want to ask you, because it's quite tempting. I can see the sort of the idea from Shikari's point of view in a way.
Yeah.
So he's obviously 20 CS behind already before 10 minutes. He's losing this 1v1 pretty hard, as he would against Null. But if he gets a bunch of items, he's going to be useful, right? So is it ever worth trying to go for a 1v1? Like, normally I'd discourage ever trying to do a 1v1, but like, if he, let's say he kills Sendo there, he like turns the lane round, right, and maybe he gets back to even. Is it ever worth doing something like that, or is it?
I mean,
just gonna cause more
it's
problems?
like risk versus reward, and it's a kind of high percentage play for Gangplank, in as much as it's quite a high risk with regards to it going wrong, because he shouldn't beat Nar at this point. If he does beat Nar, then Nar's done something wrong significantly.
Okay. Yeah.
And the higher level you get, the more kind of mechanical players are, and the difference between mechanical players is not that much. So the Nar should just be beating the Gangplank off the basis of matchup. Realistically, I'd say it's better for Shikari just to actually just farm this lane out and try and rush his Triforce as fast as possible, so that he can then endlessly clear versus the Nar, and Nar's not such a threat on the tower. Prior to that, it's actually kind of hard for Gangplank. He's just stacking up gold with Parlay and Relic. It's okay for Gangplank to be like significantly behind his CS, because he gets so much added gold
it's
elsewhere.
that sort of point where it's like, if Gangplank is down in just CS, then he's going to outscale eventually.
Yeah.
And if he's down in CS and kills, then you're going to start losing like lots of objectives and stuff like that. So this is where, so it's just basically it's just not even worth it.
No, I mean, he just needs to slow the game and get to the point where he's in a situation where he's got his Triforce able to clear. So again, this was like bot prior, right?
From Taxa there, like, it seems a bit. Oh, but okay. So here's we see probably why.
Yeah. He used jump aggressively, which I wouldn't advocate necessarily, especially without knowing full information. And enemy bot lane, so Zyra Khan, were already in mid lane.
Okay.
But again, off a really good back timing from our bot lane, so they're using the back timings really well on bot lane, and actually making a lot of prior out of it. And because Kha'Zix used that jump aggressively and Ryze used the ult onto him, he felt like well, I mean, the jump at level 1 is like a 12-second jump or something, so he didn't have the time to wait for that to come back up.
So
to get
Rakan could have been in that Ryze ult.
Yeah, I mean, Rakan was potentially there. He didn't have enough information to be that aggressive at that moment. So
and I mean, also it allows him to stay on the map if he was going to wait in the pit and get sort of chunked out.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's risky, but also just keeping full HP allows him to stay on the map and keep helping.
The flash probably won't be the end of the world here for Kha'Zix. I mean, there's probably not a huge amount of team fighting going on for a little while. The Rift Herald with the pressure lane of Nar, as well as us being able to kind of this tower starting to get chunked, you should see a situation where the Rift Herald has kind of given up at some point. And the Cloud Drake is the other side of the map, so neutral objective wise, there's actually not a huge amount for Misfits to fight over, so that flash probably won't mean that much, or shouldn't mean that much at this point in the game for the Kha'Zix.
Okay, so from the exceL point of view then, your game's going pretty well at this point. You're doing the things you want to do with the Kha'Zix. He's working as this really effective battle ward like we talked about.
Yeah.
You've got more than just the CS advantage which you're expecting in top lane because of this thing from Shikari, as we mentioned, this trying to go for a 1v1. So what is the next things you're starting to do? Because if this lane phase goes on for another 10 minutes, we're still going to be in a bad situation, right? Because if like they will eventually get outscaled, and the advantage you have at the moment isn't enough, is it?
Right now, no. From an exceL point of view, you need to look for an open, and you need to look for a way of opening up the map and starting to use the strength of your composition in the early game. So first tower is where it's going to be. Nara's already chipped down this tower. Like I said, Gangplank can't really significantly clear until he's got this Triforce, and he can just get the 200% like Sheen procs on the waves all the time. So until that, Nara's going to be able to push him with mini Nara and actually continue to chunk the tower. If there's a moment of prio for Victor and Kha'Zix, I'd expect them to move into topside river, start gaining control, put some threat on Shikari that he's potentially getting dove. Force him to back off, and then try and just finish off that
And again,
tower.
it's just all about that pressure, right? It's about the like if Taxa pushes into the Misfits blue side jungle, he can just force Shikari away, regardless of whether like he's actually going to dive him or not. Just the threat of him being there like makes such a big difference.
Exactly.
That's a really nice block of the Sejal.
Yeah, it's exactly how this bot lane should work, really. Braum saves Kalista with the shield, then Kalista saves Braum with the ult, and then Braum disengages the fight with his ult. And you can get at him pretty. I mean, there's probably not a much more offensive bot lane than Zyra Khan with a level 6 or post level 6 Edgewani. So you can see how well with ultimates they can kind of disengage any threat that's on them.
One thing to mention is that at this point, at least, I'm not going to like go back and rewatch that sort of like micro play. What we'd like to focus on is hopefully teaching you guys a bit about how to play like as a team and how to use pressure and stuff like that. So that was just the correct play for both the bot lane and exceL to do, and still, I mean, a fairly effective gank because they got all the like summons and stuff like that. But we're not going to rewatch that sort of thing. We'd like to focus on. So, like I said, we're so I guess this is the objective then. This top tower,
so
and it's not about killing GP. It's just about getting him away from the
If
tower.
we just pause it just for 1 second, what we kind of saw is obviously that play made on bot lane that we briefly spoke about, and then immediately, literally within 5 seconds of that occurring, Kha'Zix ganks mid, gets Rise Flash. Victor's allowed to push out mid lane because of this in a lane situation where he's actually been falling behind, and then because Victor's now free, he moves in with the Kha'Zix into topside. The Gangplank has to move away from his tower. Nara's now probably going to be able to whittle down the tower and finish that off. So we've opened up the map just through a slight kind of bit of cross-map pressure, right?
Yeah, and that's one of those things where, again, you see it capitalise on a lot in teams, but it does actually affect everything, really.
Yeah,
Is this like, if your team's making a play on top side, don't do something bot side because you're going to be like outnumbered.
Yeah.
Looks like
Absolutely.
Tower's actually going to go over to exceL.
And so again, the domino effect of like, as we see it, but the mistake of the exact same mistake that we just talked about. But again, we see so that tower goes down. I mean, it was going to go down anyway, but it goes down now because of the play on bot lane. And then this is this just the exceL bot lane not respecting the exact same thing we talked about?
Yeah,
Doing a play on.
It's a
top
combination of we've just seen a chain of kind of 3 or 4 cross-map plays. One where they gank bot initially, they burnt the summoners, and immediately exceL gank mid and return with the summoners of their own. Then we invest our resources with Victor Kha'Zix towards topside, towards the tier 1 to secure that tier 1, and because they know we've invested resources into the topside, as you can see they're picking out the Kha'Zix, they immediately make the cross-map because they know we can't answer in numbers. And especially as a scaling team or a team that's behind, always making the play on the opposite side of the map where you know they can't match, it allows you to bypass scaling because outnumber advantage is always better than scaling.
You don't need to sort of just sit back and do nothing. It's like if they give you an opportunity, they're playing aggressive around topside and they're not leaving this bot lane. I mean, it does feel bad to leave the bot lane tower, especially when you're Kalista Braum and you're really strong 2v2.
Yeah.
But they've got this window, right, where you've got no Kalista ult, you've got no Braum ult, you've got no flash on Venza.
And I mean, realistically, if they step away from this tower, as they should, Venza and Jewel, with 4 minions there, this tower's probably not going to go down. The wave's just going to die. You're going to lose a cannon wave, which is unfortunate. But realistically, you're getting a lot more gold on the cross map to actually that kind of makes up for that, and you're happy with that.
Yeah.
And then you step back up to your tower. When Victor's come back mid, he's got pressure. Rise has had to show mid again, and you're in a good situation again. But yeah, we don't respect enough here, and actually get punished for it as you should.
A lot of engage in regards to that ult. Fierce flash there as well. Something to comment on.
No, I've jumped back. I didn't
Yeah,
realise
that's
quite how far I jumped back. Okay, so we see, and it's not perfectly executed dive. Obviously, they create one for one, but it's still not ever worth being in that situation, right? It's just like
I mean, there's no reason to risk what needs to be an outplay to get any positive out of that.
Yeah.
You may as well just step away.
And I mean, even if they commit 4 people here, if you've backed away, even if they do get the tower, not only have you got the first Blood Tower,
yeah.
you're getting the Rift Herald, and you're also getting damage on mid.
You're getting damage on mid, you're getting free farm on our scaling element, which is the Victor. So yeah. I mean, there's positives all round.
So yeah, just because it feels bad for you to step away from the tower,
it's a team game and not just 2v2, right? So
The Misfits just punish instantly. Their macro
Yeah.
is really solid.
and they pick up the blue as well on the way out. If it was a different dragon, or perhaps if it was 8.5, they might be looking to pick up the dragon. But exeL still win out on that in terms of objective trade, right? So it's still not
yeah, I mean,
bad from
Herald is one of those objectives that can either mean a lot or mean very little. It's somewhat dependent on the result that kind of breeds. In this situation, we'll see a little bit later how that's used, but it's often used during swap phases where the opposing can't match in numbers, and you are able to just get a much faster push because of that.
And this is something we see quite often. You see the bot lane tower going down first and then bot lane rotating. But because top lane tower actually went down first, how are we seeing this turn out in terms of what we're going for the next objective? Because we're just already like mirroring rather than anything else.
Okay, so it's a mistake here by exeL really. We try and get greedy, and we try and make two plays at once. We try and take the bot tower, and we try and make a play on mid to try and get mid tower, which realistically is the greedy route of what we do. We use the Herald to get mid, but what we didn't at the time, the team at the time didn't kind of take into consideration is that Gangplank can clear so effectively. Now he's hit that Triforce that we were speaking about. He can clear so effectively, even versus two people, that it's actually really hard to do too much. They get two towers on top lane. We continue pushing with three in the mid lane, with two in the mid lane and the Herald, and then we move our bot lane into that. What I was really glad about is that exeL didn't just sit and watch his towers go down top lane and not get anything for it. He was actually able to facilitate the push, because Ryze could, again, another really heavy wave clear champ, potentially wave clear versus Kha'Zix's Victor alone.
And then that forces Shikari to come mid, and now
we get the bot tower, but and they're able to return with the mid tower. What in this particular situation where we've got the early game comp and they've got the more scaling comp, it favours Misfits quite significantly, I'd say. I would have advocated much more of a match.
So an even trade favours the team that's scaling, even if you're. So like this is going to speed up the whole tempo of the game, right? Because the towers are going to start going
the
down,
way you kind of got to think about it is that say exeL's kind of real win conditions or strength within their team comp comes between 30 and 50,000 gold, right? Whereas Misfits comp comes online at 50 onwards. And then if both teams get 4,000 gold nearer to 50, it's a smaller window for exeL's strengths to actually be present in the game. Yes, immediately it favours exeL because they get to their 2 item spikes, whatever. But both teams are pushing nearer quicker to that 50,000, 60,000 gold mark.
So
where
it's like while the
Misfits want to
be.
be.
The first 2 towers have already gone down, the lane phase is already starting to end. So rather than just match, for Misfits want to be, this was the correct play to be like, we're not going to fight because exeL are probably stronger. We're just going to go the other side of the map.
If they could have a non-interactive map for the next 15 minutes, it would be perfect for them. And that's essentially what they've got for the last 2 minutes or so. A non-interactive map where they're not having to kind of create any situation where they're having to interact with an early game comp as a scaling comp.
The other thing with that is as well, it just starts becoming of trading waves rather than actually fighting each other 1v1. So we saw, what was it, pre 10 minutes, exeL was already 20 CS up or something like that. And now he got to 30 CS up, and then they started switching, and he's still 30 CS up, even though it's later on. And like you say, it's just pushing closer to
during the mirroring phase, it's not going to increase. Gangplank's just going to get farm on one side of the map, Nara's going to get farm on the other. Once you get back into the 1v1 lane, you will see that much more.
And is that why we see exeL coming down here into bot lane? He's just looking for that one.
Once the side lane towers are gone, you can't really match. You can't really mirror anymore. I mean, the only lane left is mid lane, and if you're both mirroring on mid lane, you're effectively matching, right? So, you'll now find a situation where it's just a case of who puts which side lane where. So where does Victor and Nar go compared to where does Gangplank and Ryze go? But because neither mid lane has got teleport. Normally you'll put them nearest to the next neutral objective that you're going to play.
So who do you think then got the advantage in terms of the towers? Because obviously we saw different sets of towers go down. Is there anything different about getting the sort of tier 2 mid rather than top?
Outside of inhib towers, mid tier 1 is like the most valuable tower on the map, and
went down for both teams.
Mainly in this instance it went down for both teams, and then obviously the mid tier 2 as well. Mid lane towers generally are more valuable because you can push in deeper. into the enemy jungle. And on both sides, you can choose to put your vision in top side. You can choose to put your vision in bot side. Whereas Misfits only got top tier 2s. Yes, they got the mid tier 1 as well, but their vision, the only real benefit, the kind of initial benefit they get off that is how far Rise can push in. So Rise can push into Victor quite significantly, and that favors that gives Rise more free time to move.
Yeah, one thing I just want to point out as well, we keep talking about pressure, we keep coming down to this like prio type thing. This is something that we see, if you look at what exceL does here, this is like one of the easiest things to change about your play, and it does make such a big difference. So he pushes in a wave, and rather just waiting behind the wave, where Misfits can still see him, he just ducks into Fog of War, and he causes loads of pressure like on the other side of the map.
He immediately just respects the fact
and
that
you see Shikari's instant, like, question mark, or like, he's gone.
He just knows that Shikari can insta wave clear at this point in the game, so he can't really get much leeway on this tier 2 bot lane. But what can happen is that he can create room for our rest of our team to move around mid lane, because Zyra, Khan, Sejuani are all respecting the potential for a big Mega Gnar walking in behind them.
Yeah, and then as we talked about with the domino effect, just Sendo moving up a bit allowed exceL to push out the mid lane, because Misfits had to back off in case he was roaming, even though, as we can see, he wasn't. He literally just went up into the jungle.
It's very
for 2
easy
seconds
when you don't have a Fog of War, but when you're in that situation where everything's blind, apart from where the areas you've controlled, it can become really, really tough. It's now just a massive tug of war game of vision of the topside jungle and the river. River strength is always super important at this point in the game when after Nash is spawned.
I mean, this is why one of the reasons why Kalista is so favoured, especially in competitive play, right? Because it just allows you, every like minute and a half, whatever, it allows you an entirely free face check.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive advocate of using an ability like that to just outright face check. Sometimes you feel like you have to.
Yeah.
I would have to check back and see where Victor and Kalista blue trinkets were used, because the likelihood is they may actually not been that efficient in that time. Right? So holding on to them until an actual point where Nash needs to be checked is the more favourable for me, rather than spending the next 2 minutes or minute and a half without Kalista.
And this what we're seeing now is is basically just the same thing, a little bit the same thing that we saw earlier.
Yeah.
A slight overstay when he's not got the pressure for the rest of his team. So it's literally like, I mean, so far this game has been just trading macro plays, and pretty much whenever anyone's died, it's just been like, we're not respecting something on the map, so we're not respecting the fact that we're making a play topside and we're staying around the bot tower.
Yeah.
Well, here, I mean, basically, special stayed 5 seconds too long, because exceL saw that all the people who were baiting around Baron had gone somewhere else.
So what you'll see here is that special actually hard shoves his waves in, which commits him to stand up in the lane for an extra wave longer than he otherwise should, and if exceL have prior on mid lane and they're able to push and then move into the river, and Kha'Zix has free time to move within his own jungle, then by doing that he can be way too far up and get caught out. Whereas if you watch probably a lot of time, what Krumel will do is that he will leave a wave slow pushing away from him, so he doesn't actually have to step up to clear the next wave. He just leaves it with a numbers advantage on the wave, and then he can move into the team knowing that someone has to deal with the wave. It does reduce the amount of farm Victor's getting immediately, but it does create a situation where he's never at such risk as the Rise is.
Yeah. And that, literally those few seconds that I just played, like, that's the difference between staying too long and not staying. So we can jump back again if everyone wants to just like watch the mini-map. So at this point Victor's okay, but then exceL see that the rest of the team go away. This stepping up here, it's like, now that's too much.
Yeah, he's already gone too far.
Yeah, and the difference is in a game like this is that small in terms of getting a kill. So there might not be an objective that exceL can get from it, but like literally that 5 seconds.
Yeah, and I mean,
so much.
Although there's not like an immediate objective, you'll see what exceL do now with regards to. They'll start to pressure these lanes after their backs, gives them a free back timing, gets them to spend up their gold, and then they'll regain control of the river and their own jungle. Which is exactly what we need to do to be able to get to the point where we can control the Nash and play around the Nash properly.
So I guess that's sort of the main takeaway of everything that's happened so far in this game. Is just remember it's a 5v5 game. Like this is you've got to make sure you know where your team is, so you know where their team could be, right?
Because Rise doesn't exist on the map right now, you can move into Rivers 4, knowing the gangplank spot, knowing that you can't be outnumbered, and just gain full control. Clear out all the wards they've invested in, put your own wards down, and make that kind of play.
Yeah, and you get the... this is like obviously a bit of a meme at this point, but it's so simple to be like, you push, you get a vision, then you push, then you do.
Yeah. So
this is like the reverse happening, right? So Victor shows on top wave to push, and then instantly the second that Misfits have some sort of prio because they've got like, well, we've got more like players around this area now.
They just got that numbers advantage in mid lane,
and then you go back and you take vision again.
Braun had to use his ult to disengage that, and then you lose a lot of the vision we've actually just played for. Which if you're new to the kind of competitive side of League, it can be very frustrating that you've just invested a lot of gold into like wards and stuff, and then within 30 seconds it's actually been removed. But it's just the way it is. It's just the way League is. You have to do it to be able to control the objectives properly and allow minimal risk on kind of steals or enemy control.
And so again, this is the same thing. So if you're from Misfits' point of view, like if you're in the scaling team, we've seen once the lane phase is already over, you want to try and mirror rather than match, so you're not fighting them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they've been doing really well is just the small amounts of priority that they do have. They use them like straight away. Even though Callista and Braum is stronger 2v2, the second that Rakan is unlocked, he doesn't just sit there and be like, we still need help because we're behind. He instantly goes and tries somewhere else. And the second that Krumel shows top lane, even though Rise wasn't quite yet in range to ult, I think, it's like instantly like, what can we get? Because as we said, it's a 5-man game.
1 sec. Okay, that's fine.
I'm just gonna cut it back, and it'll be like flawless.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. So what do we see? We'll just jump back up in 10 seconds.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a setup for Nash. We already had vision. We've protected the vision, and now they're in a situation where they're being a bit forced to face check. And if we look at Sendo on the cross map as well, he's already here, ready. Just charged Meganar. Got TP channeling in a deep ward, so we've been able to push into Misfits jungle, get some flank wards down. Even if they look to disengage this now, there's a big Meganar coming from behind, should sweep them back into the team. Victor, Callista do all the AoE damage that we should need. Taxa coming from an out of vision spot. Our initial engage is the Callista ult. Yeah, as we can see, that's what it is.
So that's pretty clean. I mean, from a Misfits point of view, they maybe shouldn't have been so grouped up, like so close together, because they all got hit by Callista as they're checking. But it's one of those things, right, where the play was set up correctly, so that even if they didn't all get knocked up, as you said, Sendo, he didn't get an assist there.
No, but he literally did nothing apart.
If they hadn't have all been one shot, he would have been there, and the same thing would have happened.
The insurance policy was kind of there based on, even if they played this correctly, we're still killing them because of the situation they found themselves.
What are the things that you can do from Misfits' point of view to avoid something like that happening?
Again, blue trinkets are really important.
So maybe we should see that on
Rise should have a blue trinket for sure by now.
Okay, and then that would have been one extra time that exceL would have had to do that at least, and then maybe Zayas is back up, and then so it's all about.
And it's another time where they're able to. I mean, even Rise ult is a tool of actually just chucking the Rise ult in there, no one in the Rise ult, and just checking the Nash. You need to think of the ways that you've got in your comp to check the Nash without actually having to face check it yourself, because you find yourselves in these really rough situations if teams play around and control vision correctly.
Venza's getting engaged on. Room prisons thrown out. Glacial Fissures to follow.
Don't know if anything's actually going to happen here.
Again, it's really just such good disengage from this duo.
But it does relieve a bit of pressure again. So
sure.
The second that Misfits can make something happen, they're doing it, even though they probably didn't really even expect to kill there.
No.
They just want, like, if we can just stall an extra 30 seconds off this Baron.
And the mistake there from exceL was actually we're winning on one side of the lane and there's no one showing on Sendo's lane.
Yeah.
So
they're doing
why are they not showing? There's no reason they'd give up that tower if they were doing nothing. So until Gangplank shows here, it's actually, you shouldn't be pressuring so hard on the other side of the map. Once Gangplank does show, then you can pressure knowing that it can only be 4v4.
And it just comes back so that this game is 5v5 basically.
Yeah, it's just tug of war, like two sides of the map just tugging against each other and trying to get in that situation. Here's again, this is the second Cloud Drake. something I was not necessarily keen on when we VoD reviewed this game is that we didn't put enough priority on the Drakes and trying to get them down as early as possible. We had a fair bit of free time before we were able to open up the towers, where we could have taken the first Drake much earlier.
Yeah.
And my kind of thought process on that is that while we're stronger than them, we should be like fishing for as many mountains, as many infernals, Drakes that are going to really help us. So it's like,
even though it's cloud, if you can take it for pretty much free, taking a neutral objective while you're ahead is worth it, because the next one could be
something more valuable, which while we're strong we can still fight for. If this goes to super late game and we don't have any Drakes, and nor do they, it only really favours the team that didn't have to contest.
I want to
anyway.
ask you here now. So obviously we're starting to get pretty much all. This is the last tower outside the base.
Yes.
Cracking the base is obviously a massively important thing, and this is where you see, especially on this patch, teams just sort of like, you get to here at 30 minutes and then 45 minutes you still haven't cracked the base. So what is it that exceL are going to, should be looking to do to sort of break the base at this point? Because again, they're quite far ahead now.
Yep.
This is good for now. If 5 minutes the goal is like this, it's starting to get like not enough, right? So
for sure.
So what is it that we want to see? So we've seen Sendo 1v1. Even with that massive wave, you saw GP coming in, and one barrel clears all the
clears the whole Baron minions. Yeah.
So he can pressure him, but he's probably not going to be able to get that tower 1v1.
Sendo right now is the one that's like a bit stuck for his pressure. He's going to struggle to actually get a huge amount more than he's already got versus the GP, while GP is going to become just continuously and significantly stronger. What needs to happen now is that you're linking waves. So what I mean by that is that Victor's shoving the mid lane wave in and then move into the team, and that mid lane wave crashes a similar time to the bot wave crashes, so that Victor can be bot lane when the wave's about to crash.
It's that tug of war again, isn't it? Really?
So Victor is our big like zoning tool when it comes to the siege in these towers, and stops Xayah, which is their main source of wave clear, actually stepping up to the wave. And if he's able to be here when the wave crashes, so he's slightly late here actually, and that's why Xayah is able to step up like this and actually clear the wave. If he's here when the wave is available and he's able to put down W and then zone off with that tool, then the wave lasts much longer. Kalista gets a few hits on the tower. The tower gets significantly chipped. So that's really what needs to be being played for right now, and that's something we didn't do greatly in this game.
Yeah. Okay, so it's still just like you have to. No one's going to crack this base. And they're just trying to relieve the pressure wherever they can. But basically, you're going to have to crack this base as a 5.
Yeah, and we can see how much kind of chip damage occurs here once when Victor is able to be at the wave. Like majority of that half was done then, just as
just to clarify, I don't mean as a 5 as in as 5 people in the same lane. I mean like everyone needs to be doing their correct job, and you need to be sort of, like, as you said, like pushing the waves in at the right time, stuff like that.
Really want to be getting some pressure on this tower here.
So Tax is just coming around the back to W,
just to threaten, and then Victor should step up, put his W down, just like that. Again, really hard to engage on this duo, on the Braum Kalista duo. They've engaged several times and got very little. That's all the tools they had remaining, basically, to clear one more wave.
Just cost one ult and a bit of HP.
The next wave, the tower's gone.
So they don't even try to defend it. That's another thing that you see a lot of teams, especially like a bit lower level teams, like, don't try and defend objectives that are already doomed.
Yeah,
like,
because
this is going down because you've got no.
What will always happen is that you end up in a situation where you don't only lose that objective that you were trying to defend, but you lose the next one as well because of your death timer. Whereas actually just staying alive is more valuable to protect the objectives that you need to play for.
So this is again this is the point of the game where it looks like exceL are in control.
Yeah.
But Misfits are actually doing a really, really good job in terms of, like, they lose one tower for that Baron so far.
Yeah,
maybe that's the whole Baron. Like that's really good.
They lost tier 1 top, tier 2 top as well, I think.
Okay, so they lose 2.
So it's like 2 towers. I mean,
towers
it's not a massive Baron play. It's like 2k. Where it does become a struggle and where it's much harder to actually siege properly without actually like diving is on inhib towers, because you're funneled into a kind of a narrower area, and the distance between the towers to defend for them is much shorter. So starving out the Sejuani and create vision controlling her jungle now is like the optimal importance once this Nash buff is gone, which it looks like it has.
Yeah. So we've got Nash coming up in 1 minute 30. Is there anything that exceL should be doing before then? Also, from Misfits' point of view, we just want to keep doing the same thing. They want to keep stalling as much as possible, basically.
Immediately, the lane assignments have changed, right? Now's gone back into bot lane, which is the furthest way from the Nash. He's the TP user. Victor's back in his top lane, being able to shove in. It's once someone shows on the Gnar lane, so Ryze in this instance, you will see much more pressure of going into the top side jungle from bot lane and Kha'Zix, being able to move in and get vision, just like we're seeing here.
And is this from Misfits' point of view? So Ryze doesn't have the TP at the moment.
Yeah,
he could back and get one. That's surely a much better matchup, right? Because Sendo, as you can see, he's got lots of armor, but no.
Yeah, Sendo's going to struggle to do anything against this Ryze, and if Ryze gets on top of Sendo, Sendo should actually struggle and lose.
Is it not worth having special, even though you're gonna obviously take the recall timing and you're gonna take the back timing, which is gonna lose you some pressure? Is it not worth him backing now to get TP, because in 35 seconds you're going to need a TP on bot lane, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends. Here, Sendo does get some prio, and this is where it's worse to have the Ryze here, because he can't match that prio immediately if he was shoved in. He does shove the wave, and Sendo is going to lose that wave, but Sendo's already at the fight, and if this fight goes badly, Nash is gone.
Yeah. So this is what I mean before. So he's got the Unsealed Spellbook.
Yep.
Knowing that my job now is to match the Gnar, was it not worth already switching to TP? Because
yes,
his first play.
I think so. If they were if that's what Misfits' decision was, is to send the Ryze into the Gnar lane,
which is probably the correct.
Then the TP should have been done on his previous recall, because a situation like this occurs, Sendo actually moves away from that, it moves into here, and they start to get massive pressure.
And this is one of the things that happens quite a lot, is that even in solo queue, I mean, you change lane assignments, but mostly you change them because it's like, oh, I was there to go down and clear a wave, and then Gnar showed up, and I'm stronger than Gnar, so I just keep pushing.
Yeah.
But really, it should have been, my job is now to match the Gnar, if that was the call.
I can now shove the Gnar in,
but because I'm matching the Gnar, I need to go back and get my TP before.
This is really good from Sendo, right? Sendo's sacrificing a wave for his team so that he can create an outnumbered situation in the mid lane, whereas it should have been the other way around. It should have been Ryze pushing into the Gnar having to deal with the wave, and then the Ryze moving first, giving pressure to Misfits.
So again, it's using prio regardless of whether you're stronger. If you have prio because of something else has happened, then that's a good time to use it.
So Ryze does use Ghost and ult together.
Yeah, so now if he swaps the TP, it's not going to be up anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the same.
Whereas now Sendo can go back bot lane, he has TP, they're in a really good spot, we still have control of the river. Misfits will find themselves in a similar situation to what they were in initially. This time they do use the blue trinket.
They've got 2 blue trinkets this time.
So they're holding on to that.
And they make sure they don't use them both.
They don't want to use them immediately, and that's why we start Nash immediately after. So now both blue trinkets are down, you can actually disengage this and be okay. They will have the inside push on mid, so we need to recall and actually defend that. But there's now no blue trinket, so if you rework into this situation again, it becomes quite difficult for them to check now, because there's a period of cooldown, right?
And again, it's that same thing of you push, you get vision, you push, then you start it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that you didn't even need the second blue trinket because you had the scribe plan.
Yeah, I mean, they got a little bit angsty and a little bit scared.
Yeah. I mean, when you're 32 minutes into one of the most important games of the season, like I can totally understand. With the benefit of
lots
hindsight.
of things do go out the window a little bit compared to your practice when you're in competitive games when it like the pressure's on.
Yeah, of course. So Misfits, they're just sort of poking the Baron, as in if maybe exceL have accidentally all recalled one of those mistakes that we just talked about.
Or they aren't able to go onto it, then we're going to punish for that.
And they don't really lose much, but they just lose prio on it again.
Yeah. So again, Mega Gnar is charged. They're using the Ryze ult to check this time because they don't have the blue trinkets up.
Okay. But this time, exceL keeping leash for much longer.
Yeah. We peel off.
And it's just about counting what's being used, right? Ryze ult down, Gangplank ult down, Sejuani ult down.
It's a
and then on
huge
exceL's side, nothing so far. So even though they may be equal or even a little bit ahead in the the health trade, you've got to keep track of all these timers, and you really need in team situations. You really need you sort of need everyone, but you definitely need at least one person to be saying exactly what's up and what's down. Like.
Yeah, and here we saw two teams calling each team's bluff. They went mid, we went towards top lane. We had the push advantage, we were there faster, so they started to recall, and then we turned and went back towards the Nash. Then we're able to defend mid. I mean, this mid tower's going to go down soon, but no, yeah, as we can see, Rise does lots of damage. So 4 item Rise.
He still doesn't have the TP, but he still
This is
should
a
be trying to
420
match
farm
now.
Rise at 34 minutes, so he's very huge.
So he's almost got a flame horizon on someone who's getting
Yeah.
what we've got 10 CS.
I mean, yeah, Kumail's
Flame
at 10 CS
Horizon
a
on 10
minute,
CS
and
a
he's
minute,
almost
nice.
Flame Horizon. Yeah.
Okay, and that's just about like you're not ever going to do that in solo queue. That's just about he's been the one to be catching the pushing waves.
he's
Like,
constantly
it's
had
not like,
farm
you
funneled
just
onto
need to
him.
hit more farm. It's like
Yeah.
literally there is only so much farm on the map.
Yeah, and he's getting the majority of it for Misfits right now.
Okay, so we've got both blue trinkets up again, but exceL just doing the same thing because they're losing so little for each one of
Yeah,
their mates.
I mean, you're trying to just force Misfits into a mistake, force them into making bad decisions.
Yeah, and this is something that I see, especially in the sort of the lower level teams, is that you do a play, you get a little bit of an advantage. You do the same play, you get a little bit of an advantage, and then you're like, well, we're not actually getting any kills, and we're not getting Baron, so let's stop doing it. But it's like, no, you keep trying those same sort of things as long as you know that's the correct play.
I mean, you have to understand what are wins and what are not. The overall win, yes, is of course getting the Nash, but there are smaller wins at this level of play to take on the map. And one key one is, as you can see, we had a big slow pushing in the bot lane. Someone from Misfits, probably Shikari because he's got the most expensive bill, wants to get onto that. He's so on and so forth, wants to collect that wave. And so to do that, he needs to recall and he needs to walk to that wave. So by starting the Nash, it forces them to say, okay, we're going to have to give up that wave. And if that wave crashes into tower, you're losing probably 4 waves. 4 waves is like almost going on for 2 kills nearly. 2 kills worth of gold that's crashing into bot tower, and you're just now being denied while your tower is also taking some chip damage. So again, that's a small win for exceL that may not be considered if you're just playing solo queue or something like that.
So just because you're not getting like the Baron from all these Baron baits doesn't mean you should stop doing
there are
them.
small wins to be made.
And also they just need to make it's like they can respond to it correctly over and over and over and over and over, but they mess it up once, you still get Baron.
Yeah.
Like it's
going to happen. We're actually seeing
exactly.
Sendo start up.
so it's just the same tactic then from exceL over and over. We've got both blue trinkets again. They're on the Baron. This is like, do we jump back a bit?
Yeah, just slightly.
10 seconds. So again, like we said, they're causing more and more pressure by just keep doing the same Baron bait. And then Misfits, what's the sort of correct response for Misfits here? So
Well, they realise that they don't really have. They've only got 1 wave mid, and it's still already like halfway up mid lane. So there's a long way before they can gain any kind of objective off that. So they realise that Nash is the one that they need to stop. Nash is going to go down before they can get any kind of real objective off that. So they decide here to actually move in and engage. Which I don't think is the wrong call. The bot wave's already died and already crashed, so they're not losing anything anywhere else. They're looking to just punish us while we're tanking Nash.
yeah.
And actually taking the objective off that.
Currently being started. I can't see it quite yet as we're going to close in on it.
They do use sweeper and engage onto the Kha'Zix, who's already actually got no jump, but it just baits into a huge Mega Gnar.
Yeah.
And then the AoE from the 5-0 Victor is really considerable at this point in the game. And again, their strongest member, they funneled all their resources in.
He just can't
Once
get into the
again,
fight.
doesn't even get into the fight. And there's 2 Nashes in a row where that he hasn't actually got into any fights.
Yeah.
And there's second Nash.
I just find it absolutely hilarious.
And this is the point of the game where Calista is still super strong, right? Like she's just getting spears in everyone as well.
Yeah.
Victor AoE plus Calista AoE.
And this is what we're talking about. I mean, it looks slightly different right now, but although scaling has taken effect and Xayah has hit Spike,
4 items.
Callista's at like 4.5 items and Xayah's at 3, so or 3.5. So scaling again is like relative. There will be a point where even if they, even though Xayah is behind on items, she will be stronger. But it's like, as with anything, it's relative to your opponent as opposed to what your when your champion spikes necessarily.
So you're just going to get the third. At this point, you're sort of
super
clearing it
unfortunate
forever,
for us
right?
actually. we felt a bit hard done by Drake RNG in this game and the previous game to this. In the previous one, we were playing around top side against Enclave, and they happened to get 2 Infernals. And then in this one, where we're able to control all the Drakes because we have the stronger early game comp, we just get 3 Clouds. So Drake RNG's done us a bit.
But I mean, it's still one of those things like you mentioned before. When you've got the advantage, you should still be picking it up because maybe 2 half of it's Infernal and you could have got 5.
Yeah,
you could have got 3.
I mean, at that time we didn't know that, so
yeah.
it would have been the correct play to be forcing these off the map. And I mean,
obviously the sort of risk rewards changes, but if you can clear them for pretty much free,
yeah,
absolutely free. I mean, now if anyone watching this, your games are going to be on my Cloud's good. So with that in-game boost,
Cloud's much better on the new patch.
Sorry about the background noise. Okay, so we're again at this stage where it's like exceL have got to break the base. Breaking the base is really difficult. What is it that they can do? Is this the best thing to do? Just group as 4 and eventually push in because someone's going to have to not answer the NAR? Or?
The mistake from me here, for me from exceL's point of view, is that NAR and the team are too close together. What you want is NAR pushing as far away from the team as possible, so that GP can't be dealing with this, like we see here, and be dealing with the mid lane wave when it crashes.
Or Rise can't.
Or Rise, whoever they're choosing to deal with the wave, should be at the furthest point. What is nice is though when Mega NAR's about to proc, we move in and force or threaten the dive. Yeah.
So again, so much of this game, and this is what you see when 2 teams are both playing sort of the macro correctly.
Yeah.
So much of it's not actually like things happening, but the threat of something happening is what causes something else. So I guess that's one of the big things to take away is that like respect the threat of stuff happening. So you don't step up and be like, we can defend this because there's no minions, but it's like, but Mega NAR's literally just about it.
So what should happen now, which exceL actually don't do, I don't believe, is that we should be grouping as 4 in the top side, pushing in as 4 with NAR pushing mid, and then doing exactly the same. When is Mega NAR's charging, collapsing into the lane where there's already 4 and threatening the dive, using the super minions in the other wave to crash. And when someone's dealing with the super minions, obviously they can't match you in numbers on the other side of the map, and that's how we should have been playing this. But we were kind of very tunnel visioned at this point on how to end the game, and it wasn't necessarily correct, and it stalls our progress quite significantly.
Okay, so how would that be much different from this then? If you've got a lane pushing in bot, is it just because the bot lane is
because
not going to be
we would have created
pressure?
kind of 3 lanes of pressure. Super minions create a lane of pressure on their own. They're always going to push versus normal minions. So in the end, someone would have to attend. Yeah, we don't need a person there because someone's going to Shikari's having to deal with this anyway, right? So NAR should be pushing in mid lane exactly the same as what he was doing on the previous siege, and we should have been pushing in top lane as a 4-man. And then they've got 5 people to deal with 3 lanes when we're putting 4 people over 2 lanes and increasing the numbers of advantages in the lanes. While also
Baron went off pretty quickly, so might not have been any different, but you still went off. So
yeah, for sure.
You still want to do the correct things. Even
we're more likely to get something in that sense than the other, especially seeing as top lane Inhib Tower was already chunked from NAR earlier.
Okay, so a bit of a mistake in that last Baron, but other than that, Misfits have still played this last sort of 20 minutes really, really well from my point of view.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're getting to the point where they're starting to get a bit more of an advantage, but you still quite often get in these situations where it's like now we've outscaled, but we still got like no map control.
Yeah.
So what is it that they should be looking to do to try and get out of their base and try and get out of this little like cooped up area that you've got them in at the moment?
They need to realise when they're able to win fights as a composition, and then 2, they need to get some essence of prio, so probably wait for the Inhib to come back up, get some vision in one area of the jungle, play in that area of the jungle, and then slowly progress their vision up further, and then look for the actual fights that they want with the Zyra Khan engages, with the Sejuani ultimates, and actually force fights on us now, whereas it's been the other way around the whole game, right? It's been exceL forced on Misfits pretty much for the whole 40 minutes almost.
So they just need to go as a group to go and get vision to then be able to move out.
Yeah, absolutely. So like this,
exactly
it's just what we spoke about, moving into an area, getting vision control. What they do here by investing 4 people and us actually seeing that though, they do give up the inside track. They use GPL to clear the wave, which is whatever. It isn't a huge issue, but is
aggression. I mean,
It's just one of those tools, really.
Well,
You're gonna
one of those small
want
tool losses, yeah.
In a 5v5. Okay, so exceL are now doing what you said they should do doing before. So we in here bot is causing pressure by itself. 1v1 top lane is, I mean, he's not going to get the tower against the GP at this stage of the game, but like he can at least pressure him.
Yeah.
And then you're going 4v4 mid. Realistically, is this something that you can actually use to break the base again, or are you basically just waiting until like the objectives comes up?
You're trying to suffocate Misfits as much as you can in their own base until there's two really important objectives coming up: the Elder Drake and Baron.
And this is one of those things, right, where after 3 minutes of doing this, like it's not going to be 3 minutes, but if you were to keep someone in their base for 3 minutes, all vision that they have is now something that's visible to you.
Completely.
Like it's just pink wards or blue trinkets, right? Like, it's the same thing.
This was a really bad one, actually. If we're just able to skip back to that, just and look at that, because that costs a lot. Using key ultimates like this in the lead up to two huge objectives, 30 seconds till Infernal, until Elder, and then 49 seconds to the Nash. You're now not going to have this ultimate for that, and they're going to be in a situation now where realistically this comp doesn't have a huge amount of engage outside of the Mega Gnar or the Kalista role. So not having those tools is super bad for us, because all they need to do is just play around Mega Gnar properly, which is quite easily done if you see it coming. So if you're kind of in a front to back fight where you're seeing the opposing front line, you can play around that Mega Gnar quite comfortably. And actually the threat of engage on Misfits when they're playing for this Elder or for the Nash actually isn't as much as what it has been in the previous two Nashes.
Yeah.
And can be really tough as a result.
So is it how we ended up in this situation then? Is it just because staying too far up?
Yeah, I mean, it's not sinking the pressure, right? It's two people being there on their own while Kha'Zix's actually moving bot side to deep push the wave.
It's a nice pick from Chrisberg as well.
Yeah. It should be a case of just waiting for Kha'Zix to facilitate the super minions being pushed in, Rai showing, then Kha'Zix being back mid, and then you can step up, because you know even if they force a fight,
and it just keeps coming back to it's a 5-man game. You can't just push up.
Just looking for these small outnumbered advantages is really important.
And again, credit to Misfits in terms of like every time there's any sort of advantage that they're pouncing on it, even if they know they're just going to get the Kalista ult, but they're doing it for that one tool.
Yeah. Which becomes more and more important as this game goes on, and that is a really important one here. So you see now give up top side of the map, move in to start getting vision control for this Elder Drake.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, exceL, we've said coming into this as the underdogs, I think,
and we're definitely reaching a point now where Misfits are
where the scaling actually has taken effect, because both Misfits carries are on 6 items.
Yeah.
Our carries are also on 6 items, but our 6 items are significantly weaker.
And then
the AD carry, for instance.
The Sejuani just does so much work, especially compared to the 6
Yeah.
fights.
Steal wise, it shouldn't really be a thing. We do have Kalista to control.
Yeah.
The
so they need to
prevention of
get in
stealing.
before the fight
So
actually starts.
Misfits need to push their way in and force us out before the Drake's at a point where it can be taken down.
So here, exceL are sort of actually, despite the fact that they're the ones on the Drake, they're in this sort of tug of war. They're the ones who are going to be reactive.
Yeah.
Do Misfits need to sort of start a fight like fairly quickly?
What Misfits will be worried about right now is the fact that Sendo is nearly becoming Mega Gnar, and that is our only engage.
Yeah.
So they will be trying to like hold out for that if possible.
Yeah.
But equally, we're worried about them. They've got a huge amount of engage shorts with Sejuani. Sejuani, it's any of these 4 members now, knowing that Braum doesn't now have
he can still
Kalista
tank
out for
it,
safety.
he'll die for it.
He's still fairly tanky, but he's actually gonna, if he gets chunked out, even if he gets chunked out to like 10% HP, right? The fight is lost at this point in the game, because 4 versus 5, this point in the game is such a detrimental loss. So yeah,
so we'll see it now as it plays out.
We get fairly unlucky with a couple of Drake resets, I believe, which is really unfortunate.
So the ult comes out onto...
and as we see, like, the Braum's like now 10% HP, a huge amount of AoE damage coming through, and you're pretty much giving up this. What Misfits do next is really intelligent and fairly high level. They consider, obviously, all immediately moving over to the Nash, which is also just spawned. We decide to say, okay, we're going to call your bluff, we're going to push in with the super minions on bot lane, and the quickness for them to think about, okay, just send Sejuani and Zaya and send 3 to recall may not actually look like such a big thing, but the way they play, that's really clever. So they can clear with the 3 people while also getting the objective on the other side. Whereas a lot of teams would have said, oh, we need to back, and they all recall. Then we would have gone to Nash, potentially taken the Nash, and the game's very different. But they were able to secure both neutral objective off this just by clever assignments of their resources, basically.
Okay. So what then do exceL try and do? So you've got the pressure from the inhib, but you basically can't fight for a while, right? So
really, really rough now. The inhib's going to respawn by the time you're able to fight again. Your fights, unless played really well, are much harder to win now versus the Misfits comp. Realistically, exceL have had their window to win the game. It's now going to rely on people misstepping for exceL to win. Realistically, unless Victor literally one-shot Zaya or Rise.
which he does have the potential.
Which he can do. For sure. Which he can do. It's going to be really, really rough for exceL to ever win that fight.
Okay, and then Misfits. So Misfits is the exact reverse of that, right? As long as we don't make any missteps, like we've done for pretty much the whole game.
As long as we just play this out sensibly now, we should win the game, yeah. Because exceL haven't used their windows well enough to break our base.
Yeah.
Look how quick it's going.
And like the towers just die instantly.
I get melted now at this point with Gangplank and Zaya, double crit users. Scale very, very well into their level 18 kind of areas.
And there's just no reason to even try and fight into the Baron plus Elder.
I mean, you're basically opting into something like a 70-30, right? Where 70% of the time all of you die there and you lose the game, or there is a potential for it to be maybe a 60-40 when they don't have the Baron and the Elder, and we're actually getting something on the cross map anyway, so it's not like we're getting nothing.
And again, that's the exact same thing, right? It's like you know, we know we're going to lose this. Even if Sendo's back, we're going to lose this. So, yes, we're going to take the disadvantageous trade. Just checking that he didn't die. But it's still like half of that tower is better than none of that tower.
Then Sendo sitting there with the 4-man and watching the enemy team take his inhib, for sure. So it's just trying to get some kind of coverage onto that.
Okay, so what then is the things that for exceL to do so that they're in a position to capitalise if there's any mistakes? Is there anything they need to just prep, or is it literally just like wait around and
vision control into picks already? Where do you think Misfits are gonna play around? Is there a place where they actually might be stepping without a full team? So we see Shikari bot side. Can we potentially get a pick in the top side river if they step in there to get vision without all their members and try and find a 5v4 or something like that? Because again, they're the times where scaling actually doesn't matter. If you find an area where you're 5 and they're 4, we know they just used the Gangplank ult shortly to defend the Sendo push. So really a pick or an outnumbered fight in some areas. Whereas Misfits obviously very clever. Shikari pushes the wave, joins up with the team, so they're now 5. They can't be outnumbered. We tried to actually move in and get a pick on the top side jungle here, but they don't fall for that and are actually.
And again, it's just straight back to the tug of war, but this time around, just literally vision.
Yeah, and it's Misfits that are now on the front foot with that, and they can be as forceful as they want to be.
So Misfits, is it basically the call for them to just be like, let's pretty much stay in lanes because you can't really get picked if not, and there's nothing else up. So
let's group. Let's not face check areas. We don't need to face check areas until we see people on waves. So like when you see the Calista there, obviously then you can move into the jungle like Rakan's doing now and start to control vision. But force them to show before we actually go and do that. Don't make any silly errors. So yeah, really impressive from them with regards to playing this sensibly.
Yeah.
One other thing that I want to say is like neither team would have practiced for this situation in the preparation.
Of course, because
no team gets to 50 minutes in a scrim and is still really like consistently working on what they should do at that point. It's often,
and it's not even really efficient to practice this, right? Even if you could agree with a scrim partner, let's not do anything until 45 minutes.
Yeah,
it's like it helps you.
That
maybe one game in the season
doesn't even exist. Yeah, so. And normally, if Misfits lost that Baron in a scrim like they did, what could well have happened is they could have literally just paused at that point and just gone, okay, we're not playing anymore because we feel like we've messed up enough to actually look at those issues and fix that.
Yeah.
Or we fell behind significantly enough to do that.
Yeah.
So, they may have never even got to this situation.
So what we see again, like as we're just talking about a very like extreme call, we've seen like the base rates coming out. Is this something that, like, obviously at this point, is it even worth talking about like advice to other teams? But exceL are now at the point where they're the ones weaker, so they don't want to match.
Yep.
So does it then do the same
mirroring situation there?
So
because
it's the same thing that we talked about.
I mean, similar. exceL are a bit desperate right now, to be honest. Misfits are the ones that will win a straight out 5v5 in most scenarios. They're trying to eke out any kind of tempo advantage or anything they've got that can create a situation where they can actually get a benefit out of that. And the options here are stand under your inhib and potentially fight for your inhib, or just try and trade off an inhib, which is actually whatever. I mean, you're getting the same amount of gain as they are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We could have a base race on our hands. Cannon Barrage is gonna.
But again, Gangplank very good at these situations.
Yeah,
Something the team didn't consider at that point is Gangplank ult being back up. So
They might get the tower here. They have so much damage, but
we
exceL are running.
are able to get there with the home guards and actually defend, which is okay.
Yeah. And because they don't have the Baron, then the Victor wave clear is enough.
Yeah, Victor wave clear is pretty big. And again, I mean, this is a really good one. If we just have a little pause.
Do you want to jump back to see the setup of it?
Yeah, we can. I mean, we can. Yeah. The situation that is here is actually a straight out 5v5, but one where a huge amount of their engage or all their tools are used on the Kazakhs with Stopwatch and Guardian Angel. So he's like deceptively takes a long time to kill, even though he doesn't necessarily have any tank items. And because all their tools are used on one target, we actually end up winning that fight, and we'll have a look at that.
And this is basically all you can do as Kazakhs at this point in the game, is you just like,
Yeah,
look at me,
you're
look at me.
You're just disrupting. He jumps in onto the Rise is turning, you turn their team inside out, and then Kallista's free hitting the GP. Trading GP for the Kazakhs GA is absolutely amazing. And then Kazakhs is still alive, and we're just chasing down. We're able to chase down, we're able to... and at this point, I genuinely thought we won the game. Like, when this was live, because normally when you ace a team at 50 minutes, like the death times are so long.
And this is where you should just push bot with the minions.
This is where the game gets really sad for me, because I mean, we can push bot and take the inhib. I don't think there was enough time pushing against super minions to actually end the game.
Okay.
In the situation we were in, I think what should have happened is that we should take this inhib and then move up to the Gnar and take the inhib top as well, and just be happy with 2 inhibs. And then move in mid lane as 5, let super minions push in the side lanes, and literally just end the game off of that. End the game off having 6 super minions with each wave that crashes into the tower.
This is
very troll,
very aggro.
and I mean, I don't know what we're doing. There's no macro analysis or anything for this. It's just people being super greedy.
Yeah, it's
and
just 50
hyped,
minutes into the game and hyped because they think they've won.
They think we've won, and actually we get the inhib off acing the enemy team. We pretty much ace ourselves under the tower almost. So, yeah, really troll by us that I wasn't obviously happy with when we spoke about the game after as a team.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, still, Misfits still shouldn't lose 5v5. Despite the fact that we've just seen them lose 5v5, they still shouldn't lose.
Technically, they shouldn't. No, there are ways that it can still be done. If all their tools are used on a certain area and that doesn't work out, or whatever, then yeah, they've invested way too much. If their comp gets turned inside out as well, and what I mean by that is that Kazakhs is making enough of a distraction that their front line is turning around and leaving the back line exposed, then stuff like Kalista, Victor can literally one-shot their back line. So, I mean, scaling doesn't mean anything if Saya gets 0 damage off and gets one-shot by the Victor, right? So,
into all of the damage that Crispr, Shikari, and everyone else is going to be able to do.
And now everyone's very much baited into the Nash.
Here's going to be the Glacial Fissure come through as the silence comes down. Venza is on a rampage as he manages to get a kill.
It looks like it's going well for us, and Rise alongside the Zyra literally ends the fight, and that's just the strength of these champions in the late game. The Rise and the Zyra are so strong, so powerful at this point. Sendo and Taxa somewhat make a bit of a miracle plays here. They play. This is much more intelligent than what they just did. They both just suicided under the top, but now they're back up.
They had that 50 seconds to think about what,
Yeah,
what they could do now.
They clear out the majority of the wave, which halts the progression, right? Because it's so much harder to tank these waves. What I don't agree with was Sendo getting within threat range of dying. It's so important people live. It's the most important thing at this point of the game. They've got no minions. Like, they're going to get this in it, but they're literally going to just not be able to do anything else, and Sendo's going to live. And if Sendo just stalls them, as you can see, Tax has literally got all the way to the enemy base with his invisibility stealth on his ult. That he took a tower and a half, but then Sendo gets in threat range of the carries, and again another misstep.
But like you said, 52 minutes into a game, even if you could practice this in scrims, it's so different when this game like really matters, and this is just
For sure.
absolutely huge on Taxa.
And plays it beautifully. And I mean, lots of people say that Kha'Zix is completely useless when you get to late game and stuff, but I think in this game it shows like he's been used all the way throughout the game. Right?
I mean,
it's not been a point where he's been useless.
It's not easy to do.
No, it's really hard to
He's
do.
also got 200 vision score.
Yeah, which is the most in the game significantly. So, he's played super well.
So, I mean, it's still, this is one of those situations where because everyone's got the items, big things can happen and the actual way the game is supposed to be played doesn't actually change. So
Yeah.
it's still the same thing. Misfits are still stronger, they should win 5v5s, exceL is still waiting for mistakes.
We see it all the time, right? Like in traditional sports or anything, like what should happen doesn't always happen because there's so many variables that can kind of take place. I'm really pleased that Tax actually checked there with the Scrying Orb and was able to get out without getting hit by the second one.
So that's using the Oracle is really undervalued, I think, to check rushes and stuff like that. Because he walks in there,
He just gets one shot, and then the Nash is Misfits, and it's pretty much over.
But exceL still have the advantage of the fact that if it's not a 50-50, that's the sort of their only advantage.
If it comes down to a neutral objective being low enough, there's a situation where it's really hard to do anything. They again make a really intelligent call. They use the Rise ult to get them into the base super quickly, and this is literally the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Misfits. So there's a lot of like decisions in this game throughout the whole game.
Yeah, split-second decision making at the end where you just have to make this right. And we actually aced them here as exceL, but it comes to, and again we're winning fights when we shouldn't be winning fights, right? But they're just so close to actually ending the game, and it's so easy just to lose the game off singular kind of mistakes at this point in the game. That the super minions actually do take down the Nexus, and that's where we are, and that makes me very sad.
Well, hopefully we won't be picking exceL losses too often. But so that, I mean, I guess the main things then to take away is, we're not going to talk too much about the late game, but the main things to take away are there's 5 people on your team, so make sure you're not pushing if the rest of your team can't cover. Make sure that you're using the prio whenever you have it. So if you're the champion that's going to be pushing it a lot, then you can do that a lot. But if you're not, that doesn't mean you should just be like, oh, I'm losing, so I can't do anything.
I can't do anything. There's all these stuff you can do, even if it's just in comms, but using prio is one of the most like important things about kind of amateur or semi-pro kind of competitive league that is only done very well at the higher end. Every single time that you have that pressure in the lanes, being able to move in to other lanes and actually impact them, so that it's not just this 1v1 2v2 game. If you can't do something in your lane, there is always something you can do to impact other lanes, and you need to impact other lanes so that they can then in turn impact your lane. And that's how you win these early games.
Okay, cool. Well, it was a very good game. Great for the watchers, especially neutral watchers. Maybe not so good from your point of view. Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Do let us know in the comments down below if you like this type of style of content, if you want us to do maybe slower, maybe faster. There's some areas we could probably skip through certain areas. We could look over it beforehand to try and condense the information that we want to give you. But at the moment, I think this is quite useful if you've got the sort of stamina to get through whatever this was, 1.5 hour video or something like that. So thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Thanks guys.